Meridian Crown Hotel, a woman in a Navy housekeeping uniform moved quietly along the marble floor, polishing each tile with practiced precision. Her name was Amara Lewis, and for the last 6 years, she had worked as an invisible figure in the backdrop of opulence, dusting chandeliers, scrubbing toilets, wiping away the fingerprints of wealth. But on this particular morning, as sunlight streamed through the glass walls, something disrupted the rhythm of her routine. Her cell phone buzzed softly in her pocket. Normally, Amara wouldn't dare answer during her shift. It was one of Supervisor
Comment down
Hastings'
below where
golden
you're watching
rules.
from, and don't forget to
But
like and
this wasn't
subscribe
just
if you
any
hate
number
Karen.
flashing on
Okay.
her screen. It was Langston University, the one she'd applied to 6
Go.
times for a master's
Wanna go?
program in comparative linguistics.
Em ở đâu?
Hands trembling,
Với ai đấy?
Amara ducked behind one of the grand pillars, far from the
Ah,
curious
okay,
eyes
okay.
of guests.
Anh còn chưa tắm ấy, em tắm chưa?
This is
Em
Amara
tắm chưa?
Lewis, she whispered.
Ở
A
đây để
warm
anh chạy ra
voice
luôn.
answered her, in fluent Flemish. Without missing a beat, Amara replied in perfect accent, explaining her concern about a delayed motivation letter. Her words flowed effortlessly, each syllable shaped by years of academic obsession and unacknowledged brilliance. What she didn't realize was that just across the lobby, Charles Brighton, the elusive billionaire founder of the Meridian Crown chain, had just walked in the
Toria interrupted him.
In the gleaming lobby of the Meridian Crown Hotel, a woman in a Navy housekeeping uniform moved quietly along the marble floor, polishing each tile with practiced precision.
In the gleaming lobby of the
Her name
Meridian
was
Crown
Amara
Hotel,
Lewis,
a
and for the
woman in
last
a
6
Navy
years,
housekeeping
she had
uniform
worked as an
moved
invisible
quietly
figure
along
in
the
the
marble
backdrop of
floor,
opulence,
polishing each
dusting
tile with
chandeliers,
practiced precision.
scrubbing
In the gleaming
toilets,
lobby of the
wiping
Meridian
away the
Crown
fingerprints
Hotel,
of wealth.
a woman in a Navy housekeeping
But on this
uniform moved
particular
quietly
morning,
along the
as
marble
sunlight
floor.
streamed through the glass walls,
Practice
something
precision. In the
disrupted
gleaming
rhythm
lobby of the Meridian Crown.
Her cell phone buzzed softly in her pocket. Normally, Amara wouldn't dare answer during her shift. It was one of Supervisor Hastings' golden rules. But this wasn't just any number flashing on her screen. It was Langston University, the one she'd applied to 6 times for a master's program in comparative linguistics. Hands trembling, Amara ducked behind one of the grand pillars, far from the curious eyes of guests. "Yes, this is Amara Lewis," she whispered. A warm voice answered her, in fluent Flemish. Without missing a beat, Amara replied in perfect accent, explaining her concern about a delayed motivation letter. Her words flowed effortlessly, each syllable shaped by years of academic obsession and unacknowledged brilliance. What she didn't realize was that just across the lobby, Charles Brighton, the elusive billionaire founder of the Meridian Crown chain, had just walked in with Supervisor Hastings. And he had stopped in his tracks. A black cleaning staff member. Speaking fluent Flemish. With near-native precision. Amara ended the call hastily the moment she noticed their eyes on her. "Lewis. In my office. Now." Hastings' voice cut through the quiet like a blade. The walk down to the administrative basement felt like descending into a courtroom. Hastings wasted no time, you know the rules. No phones on duty. And talking, what was that, French? Flemish, Amara replied instinctively, then immediately regretted correcting her. "I don't care if it's Elvish." You embarrassed this hotel in front of Mr. Brighton. You want to act like a diplomat, you can do it in the convention center bathrooms for the next 3 months. The punishment was cruel and calculated. That assignment meant double cleaning duties after late-night conferences, with no overtime pay. As she left the office, Amara held back tears. She had worked relentlessly for 6 years while clutching a degree from Howard College of Languages, applying for countless internal roles, only to be told, "You're not quite the right fit." That night, in a shared apartment above a noisy laundromat, Amara stared at her framed diplomas and wept. Not from weakness, but from frustration. She wasn't just cleaning floors. She was watching years of hope fade under the fluorescent lights of privilege. But the next day, everything would change. Because someone had been watching. And they were about to call her upstairs, not to punish her, but to finally ask, "Who are you really?" The following morning, Amara Lewis woke early, her uniform freshly pressed, her posture upright with determination. Whatever punishment she had to endure, she would face it head-on. She was tired of crying in silence. If she was going to be punished, she'd do it with grace. As she arrived at the hotel lobby, ready for her reassigned duties in the convention center bathrooms, something unexpected happened. The front desk phone rang, and Jennifer, the head receptionist, glanced up from her monitor. "Amara Lewis," she called out. "Human Resources would like to see you. Right away." Amara blinked, startled. HR. They were housed on the top floor, near the executive suites, territory she and her colleagues never entered. She stepped into the gold-trimmed elevator, surrounded by executives in suits, their conversation floating around stock options and acquisitions. She remained silent, clutching her cleaning cart keychain like a lifeline. "Lewis," said a sharp but not unkind voice as she entered HR. Mr. Dwyer, the HR director, motioned to a seat. "Please wait here." A few minutes later, she was led into an office far grander than she'd imagined. Charles Brighton, CEO and founder of Meridian Crown Hotels, stood behind a glass-topped desk. On it was a manila folder, open. "Miss Lewis," he said, with a voice like smooth gravel. "Yesterday, I overheard you speaking Flemish. I asked HR for your file." He tapped the folder. "Honors degree in linguistics from Howard College. Fluent in Flemish, Mandarin, Spanish, French, and Korean. 6 years in cleaning. I have to ask, why?" Amara straightened her back. "I applied for 47 positions in the hotel's international relations and guest experience departments. I was either ignored or rejected. I submitted 12 internal transfer requests. None approved. Most were routed through Supervisor Hastings or Mr. Rollins, Director of Guest Operations." Brighton scribbled those names on a notepad. His eyes darkened. "Interesting. Mr. Rollins constantly complains about our lack of multilingual staff for international guests." He walked around the desk and handed Amara a printout. "Tomorrow begins our Global Commerce Conference. Dutch and Chinese delegates will be attending. I need someone fluent in both cultures and languages." Amara blinked. You want me to clean for them?" Brighton chuckled. "No. I want you to be our international guest liaison, temporarily. Effective immediately. Salary starts at $5,000 per week." Her breath caught. That was more than she made in 3 months. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Because I saw what no one else did. Because you have what this hotel desperately needs. And because I'm starting to suspect there's something very wrong happening inside my own company." Later that morning, wearing a professional navy blazer and a staff badge granting full access to the hotel's executive areas, Amara stepped into the elevator. As fate would have it, the doors opened to reveal Supervisor Hastings. Her face blanched. "What are you doing on this floor?" she demanded. Amara gave her a professional smile. "Working, Ms. Hastings. I've been appointed international guest liaison at Mr. Brighton's request. The woman's jaw tightened. That's impossible. You don't have the degree in linguistics from Howard. Fluent in 6 languages, including Mandarin and Flemish. All in my personnel file, Amara replied calmly. Which you've had access to for 6 years. She walked past Hastings, head held high. In the HR office, Amara met Carla Benson, a newly hired HR analyst. I've been wondering about your file since I started here 3 months ago, Carla whispered. Your qualifications stood out. I asked Mr. Rollins, and he dismissed my questions. Carla processed the official promotion paperwork herself. That afternoon, as Amara reviewed materials for the conference, something disturbing caught her attention. The translated Mandarin documents were full of inaccuracies, some bordering on offensive. If left uncorrected, they could cause serious diplomatic embarrassment. She spent the next 3 hours reworking the translations, restructuring the partnership proposals and welcome letters to reflect proper etiquette. Brighton walked in silently and watched her work. These corrections. How did you know? The original version used language inappropriate in formal Chinese business settings, Amara explained. Brighton narrowed his eyes. Rollins swore he hired a top-tier agency. We paid them $50,000. He didn't check credentials. Whoever translated these knows the language, not the culture. The next morning, as the conference kicked off, Amara moved effortlessly among international guests. Switching between Dutch and Mandarin, solving misunderstandings, and smoothing formal introductions. Mr. Rollins, watching from the sidelines, approached during a break. Impressive, Miss Lewis, he said, smiling tightly. Thank you, she replied, coolly. Interesting how my fluency in Mandarin was ignored, especially when the hotel spent tens of thousands for faulty translations. I never saw your resume, Rollins offered. I received confirmations for every application. Including your own acknowledgments of receipt, she said, showing him email receipts on her tablet. What she didn't say was that Carla from HR had uncovered something more damning. Rollins had approved contracts with a translation firm owned by his niece, who had no credentials in formal Mandarin. She charged premium rates and delivered subpar results. On the 3rd day of the conference, a Dutch delegate recognized Amara. Wait. Aren't you the author of that article on linguistic nuance in cross-cultural business? Amara flushed. Yes. I've cited your work twice, he exclaimed. You belong at a university, not hidden behind hotel linens. Brighton, watching from afar, clenched his jaw. He had already ordered a deeper investigation into hiring practices. That afternoon, Carla delivered a damning report. Repeated rejection of highly qualified non-white candidates, especially women. Inflated contract payments to vendors tied to certain executives. Brighton flipped through the documents with growing rage. Then, Mr. Rollins walked in, oblivious. Dutch guests are asking about inconsistencies in the documents, he muttered. Lewis must have. Brighton cut him off coldly. Spare me. I've reviewed 6 years of evidence. You'll find your termination papers with HR, effective immediately. Rollins paled. You can't fire me over this girl, she's Dar. Amara Lewis, Brighton said, voice steely. PhD in linguistics. Fluent in 6 languages. And you buried her resume for 6 years to enrich your niece. The room fell silent. Amara, Brighton said, turning to her, I want you to help me rebuild this system, starting today. And just like that, a quiet woman who had scrubbed toilets for 6 years became the face of a revolution. The morning sun bathed the Grand Meridian's expansive lobby in a golden hue, but the atmosphere within was thick with anticipation. Word of Amara Lewis's remarkable performance at the Global Commerce Conference had begun to circulate, not just among the staff but also among guests and corporate partners. Though whispers buzzed through the marble corridors, most of the staff still treated Amara with the cautious curiosity usually reserved for sudden celebrity. Few knew the full story. Fewer still understood the storm that was quietly gathering. Amara, however, was far from basking in the limelight. After her sudden promotion to international guest liaison, she found herself plunged into meetings, language preparation, cultural briefings, and, most importantly, correcting catastrophic translation work that could have sunk the conference before it began. 3 days into the event, she was reviewing Mandarin legal phrases for a contract when a soft knock interrupted her concentration. "Come in," she called, assuming it was Carla from HR. Instead, it was Charles Brighton, CEO of Meridian Crown Hotels. He entered without preamble, a thick folder tucked beneath his arm. His expression was unreadable. "I want to show you something," he said, setting the folder down. Inside were 6 years' worth of resumes, application logs, interview assessments, and internal transfer requests. Amara's name appeared dozens of times. "These were pulled from HR's archived records," he explained. "Every one of your applications. All marked as unsuitable. But each paired with a rejection template signed by either Hastings or Rollins." He flipped a page. "Here's the kicker, this one. The interview was cancelled 5 minutes before the scheduled time. Reason given. Candidate no-show." Amara leaned forward. "I was there. I checked in with the receptionist. She confirmed me." Brighton nodded grimly. "And Rollins marked you absent." The air between them grew tense. "This isn't just negligence," Amara murmured. "This is obstruction." Brighton leaned back, steepling his fingers. "It's deeper than that. I've initiated a confidential internal audit. And I need your help." "My help?" "I want you to assist Carla in a comprehensive review of hiring practices over the past 5 years. We need a report ready before the board convenes next Friday. And Amara," he paused. "I want transparency. If there's rot, we cut it out, completely." Amara agreed. For the next 3 days, she worked with Carla in HR, poring through mountains of digital and paper records. Together, they discovered a damning pattern. Highly qualified non-white candidates, especially women, were consistently filtered out during preliminary screening. Many of their resumes never made it past middle management. Carla gasped one evening while scanning a vendor list. "Look at this," she whispered, pointing to an entry labeled Lexilingua Translations LLC. "What about it?" Amara asked. "It's registered under Ashley Rollins, Director Rollins's niece. She's listed as lead translator for our international events." A few clicks later, they confirmed it. Ashley had no formal qualifications in Mandarin or Dutch. Yet her company had billed Meridian over $300,000 in 2 years, at double market rates. Amara slumped into her chair. "So I was scrubbing floors while they handed contracts to family. Incredible." They gathered screenshots, invoices, HR evaluations, and dozens of transfer requests like Amara's, all rejected or ignored. The deeper they dug, the worse it got. Then came the final piece. One of Carla's interns, while investigating an HR data anomaly, found a filtered tag in the system, "Unfit Cultural Fit, FLAGA." It had been used over 200 times. Every recipient was either black, Hispanic, or of Asian descent. "This isn't just about you," Carla whispered. "This is systemic." The next morning, Amara and Carla presented their findings to Brighton in his office. His face darkened with each page. "How long do you think this has been going on?" he asked. "Longer than we can prove," Amara said. "But the evidence we have covers the last 6 years." Brighton tapped his pen against the folder. "We go public. With full transparency. But I need one more thing from you. Anything. I want you at the executive summit next Monday. Present the report." Yourself. Amara froze. You want me to present? Who better? You lived it. You uncovered it. And you speak for every unseen employee this company ever ignored. She swallowed hard but nodded. I'll do it. The following Monday, the executive summit convened in the hotel's grand ballroom. Nearly 200 regional managers, department heads, board members, and international partners filled the seats. The tension was palpable. Brighton took the podium first. Good morning. Before we begin our scheduled briefings, we have something important to share, something overdue. He turned and nodded toward Amara. She stepped up, holding the thick report in both hands. Her voice was steady, her words precise. For 6 years, I worked in housekeeping. I also hold a PhD in linguistics. Fluent in 6 languages. Applied for nearly 50 internal roles, denied every time. A ripple passed through the crowd. She continued, walking them through the patterns, biased hiring practices, crony vendor contracts, inflated translation costs, and the misuse of racially coded tags like unfit cultural fit. Charts and screenshots appeared on the large screen behind her. By the time she concluded, the room was dead silent. Brighton returned to the podium. Effective immediately, we are launching a full investigation across all departments. Any manager found complicit will be terminated. In addition, we are appointing Dr. Amara Lewis as Acting Director of Talent Equity and Multilingual Strategy. Thunderous applause broke out. Some rose to their feet. Hastings and Rollins, seated at the rear, looked shell-shocked. But it wasn't over yet. That afternoon, Brighton called an emergency board session. He presented evidence of fraud in vendor contracts, abuse of authority, and discriminatory hiring codes. Within an hour, Rollins was formally terminated. Hastings was placed on indefinite suspension pending investigation. By sunset, Amara stood in her new office, an elegant corner room on the 28th floor, complete with skyline view and her name etched in gold on the door. She placed a framed photo of her mother on the desk. I did it, Mama, she whispered. And now I'm going to do it for others. Amara Lewis adjusted the collar of her blazer as she stepped into the executive suite conference room. This time, she wasn't there to clean. She was there to lead. The 4th day of the Global Commerce Conference began with buzz and excitement. International clients praised the seamless coordination and professional courtesy they received. The VIP translation services now earned glowing reviews. Thanks to Amara's late-night revisions. Delegates from China, the Netherlands, and Belgium had begun discussing preliminary deals that exceeded hotel expectations. But Amara had something else on her mind. The folder in her hand contained undeniable proof that Director Rollins had, for years, funneled translation contracts to his niece's firm. Proof that the firm had charged triple market rates and delivered low-quality work. Proof that qualified internal candidates, especially women of color, were deliberately excluded from promotions. In Brighton's office, Amara laid the evidence before him. These are scanned contracts, payment receipts, and comparison charts Carla helped me compile. There's also an email from Peiyang University confirming that Ashley Rollins was never certified in Mandarin. Brighton's face hardened. And this? Amara played a recorded conversation. Rollins' voice was clear, she's just a cleaning lady. Let her mop the lobby and feel important. This position needs someone with pedigree. Brighton stood. This changes everything. 30 minutes later, in the main auditorium filled with all hotel department heads, Brighton took the stage. At his side stood Amara, holding a clicker. Today, we acknowledge a failure in our hiring systems, Brighton began. But more than that, we celebrate the beginning of change. Let me introduce Dr. Amara Lewis, whose insights this week saved us from a costly and culturally damaging disaster. Applause. Hesitant from some, enthusiastic from others, especially from the housekeeping team at the back. Amara clicked to the next slide. It showed a hiring bias heat map, white boxes for accepted applicants, red for rejected. A sea of red clustered around applications from people of color. 12 internal applications, she said calmly. 12 rejections. 0 feedback. And yet I stood here all along. More slides followed, inflated vendor payments, falsified credentials, and direct quotes from discriminatory emails. Brighton took over. Effective immediately, Director Rollins is terminated for cause. Supervisor Hastings is suspended pending further review. We are conducting a full audit of hiring and vendor practices. The room buzzed. Whispers turned into nods. The back row cheered softly. Then Brighton smiled. Dar. Lewis has agreed to lead our new diversity and language inclusion program. She will serve as Global Communications Liaison, effective today. Amara inhaled deeply. Her knees felt weak but her spirit soared. In the days that followed, she would help interview sidelined employees, redesign the internal transfer process, and oversee partnerships with real, credentialed translation firms. But at that moment, as she stepped down from the podium, the applause became thunderous. A janitor clapped the loudest, tears in her eyes. Amara gave her a small nod. She knew exactly how it felt to be invisible. 3 days after the Global Commerce Conference concluded, the atmosphere at Meridian Crown hotels remained tense. Though contracts were signed and international guests praised the hospitality, the internal storm was only beginning. Amara Lewis stood in the executive suite on the 32nd floor, now repurposed as her temporary office. From her window, she could see the city skyline stretch endlessly, a stark contrast to the supply closets and mop rooms she had once been confined to. The weight of responsibility on her shoulders was immense, but so was the quiet satisfaction in her chest. She had become more than a liaison. Charles Brighton, the CEO, had asked her to join the new Diversity and Ethics Review Committee, tasked with rooting out discriminatory practices and rebuilding the internal talent pipeline. Amara knew it wouldn't be easy. She called Carla Benson, the HR analyst who had helped uncover the suppressed resumes and fraudulent contracts. They met in the HR boardroom, where a war room of documents, internal reports, and colored charts now covered the walls. "We have to do this right," Amara said. "No witch hunts. Just truth." Carla nodded. "Then we start with the data. 142 rejected transfer requests from qualified minority candidates. 87 of them had degrees or certifications relevant to the roles they applied for. Let's start interviewing them. Privately. One by one." In the following days, Amara and Carla conducted discreet interviews with housekeeping staff, bellboys, kitchen assistants, and administrative temps. The pattern was undeniable. Supervisor Hastings, Director Rollins, and a handful of department heads had created an invisible wall. If your name sounded foreign, your accent was strong, or your skin was darker, your resume ended in a shredder pile. One evening, Amara met with Brighton in his private office. He listened intently as she outlined the findings. "It's not just racism," she said. "It's nepotism, too. Over a dozen vendor contracts went to relatives of executives. Translation, catering, temp staffing. All overpriced, all underqualified." Brighton folded his hands. "We need a full audit. And I want every department head to justify their hiring decisions for the last 5 years." Amara leaned forward. "We should also create an internal mobility platform. Anonymous reviews. Skill-based recruitment." Brighton smiled. "You're not just a liaison anymore. I want you to lead this as our Director of Internal Equity and Multilingual Strategy." The new title came with authority, budget control, and a team. But it also came with enemies. Word of Amara's promotion spread like wildfire. Some congratulated her. Others whispered behind her back. Supervisor Hastings resigned within a week, citing personal reasons. Others, like MS Denton from Guest Relations, began a quiet campaign to discredit Amara. Anonymous emails leaked to the press hinted at unqualified diversity hires. Rumors circulated that Amara had used Brighton's sympathy to leapfrog over more experienced staff. A tabloid ran a photo of Amara from 6 years prior in a housekeeper uniform, captioned, "From mop to top, cleaning her way into power."
Alo bạn
Amara
à.
stayed calm.
Giờ
Her
mai
mother, a
tôi
former
đi
teacher
tour đấy,
turned
bạn
janitor
còn
in
lấy
rural
không? Tôi
Georgia,
lấy
had
luôn
taught
đấy.
her resilience in the face of slander. If they have to lie to stop you, her mother used to say, it means you already won. But the pressure was mounting. Online forums filled with anonymous complaints. A few guests even sent complaints asking why a cleaning lady was giving press interviews about corporate reform. Brighton held a press conference to address the smear. Meridian Crown Hotels believes in merit, vision, and redemption, he said firmly. Dr. Amara Lewis has demonstrated all three. He then invited Amara to the podium. When I cleaned the lobby floors, she began, voice steady, I watched people walk past me as if I didn't exist. Now that I have a nameplate and an office, I'm somehow a threat. Visibility shouldn't be reserved for the privileged. Talent lives everywhere.